You know, sometimes I wonder if we should just burn the entire planet to the ground. No, seriously. Have you seen the shit that's out there? Of course you haven't. You might think you have, but no. Oh no. No, no. You haven't seen shit, my friend. I, on the other hand, have. So, my name's Nina. And unfortunately, I'm one of the idiots who has to deal with the weird shit out there that nobody fucking knows about. Honestly, I've had worse jobs. I mean, I don't hate doing it or anything. It's actually kind of cathartic sometimes, to get paid to beat the living shit out of things that tend to eat people. Yeah, I know how dumb/crazy I sound, but I've had to stab enough of these fuckers to death to no longer care. Most of the time, I'm dealing with what I've taken to calling the unholy trinity. Vampires, sirens, and ghouls. They make up like 80% of the bullshit I have to deal with. Vampires and sirens are pretty straightforward. They drink blood, look like people, talk like people, and in 7 out of 10-ish cases, aren't looking for trouble. I mostly get called in to deal with the 3 who are. Really, all you gotta do is convince them that you're good to eat, wait for them to try and get you alone so they can bite you, and then catch them off guard. They're a little tougher than your average asshole, but they go down just as easily once you break their kneecaps. Sirens are a little trickier, since they can hypnotize you. But if you're not a complete idiot, you can avoid that by literally just never making eye contact. Ghouls are a different story, though. They aren't a hell of a lot different from wild animals. I know some folks in my business who say you've got to hunt them the old-fashioned way. But so far, I've usually gotten by with just setting traps. You'd be shocked how often you can get away with hanging a piece of meat from a tree, waiting in your car, and just running over the ghoul when it eventually shows up. If it doesn't die the first time, back up and run over it a second time. It's not that complicated. What is complicated is anything outside the unholy trinity. Other types of fae, bug people, dark witches, cults, and weird men on dating apps. But honestly, as annoying as all those things are, I can handle them. What I can't handle are the fucking parasites. I hear about them every now and again, usually in work reports detailing recent events. Gross little things that grow in people and usually kill them in the worst fucking ways imaginable. Way too many of them spread like STIs for some reason, and a lot more spread through contaminated water. I genuinely do not know what God was smoking the day he invented these things, but whatever it is should be outlawed on a cosmic scale, and whoever sold it to God should be taken out behind a woodshed and shot. Thankfully, my organization has figured out a way to deal with outbreaks of most of these things, hence why we don't all have worms chewing their way through our guts. You're welcome. But unfortunately, they can only detect these things after the outbreaks occur. So, by the time we get around to sterilizing everything, people are usually already dead. Honestly, I consider myself lucky that I'm generally the person they call to beat mermaids to death, and not the one they call to deal with outbreaks like these. My mental health is already bad enough, thanks. I don't need to see the aftermath of a plague of parasites to make things worse. But every now and then, I still get assigned to a case that involves fucking parasites, and I hate it. Now, to be entirely fair, I wasn't actually called in because of the parasites themselves. They'd sent another team to deal with that a while back. But while that team had been looking for a potential source, they'd found something in a local lake that really wasn't supposed to be there. A spider. Specifically, a giant dead spider with a goddamn human torso. Just to be clear, this statement is not that surprising to me. Scientifically speaking, the name for a creature like that one is an arachnne, and they're considered an endangered species who are known for their extremely reclusive nature. Non-scientifically speaking, they're disgusting, and I don't know what benevolent deity would put them on this earth. I swear, if I ever meet God, I'm gonna deck him in the jaw. The theory was that the dead arachnne had been carrying the parasites when it had fallen into the water. And now, there was the question of whether or not this was a fluke, or if it was intentional. You can never tell with the arachne, because some of them just want to be left alone to farm and worship their gross bug god in peace, and some of them want to purge the world as vengeance for us driving them into the shadows. It's a coin toss which kind you're going to run into. So, when I got the call, I reluctantly drove down to the town, which will remain unnamed because I'm legally not allowed to say where it is. With several bottles of hand sanitizer, a large case of water I knew was clean, and just to be extra safe, a variety pack of granola bars, because I had no intention of eating or drinking anything I didn't bring with me. I was told I'd be meeting a contact at the local morgue, where the body they'd found was being kept. I assumed this would be someone from the parasitology division, and I was half right. Someone from the parasitology division was absolutely there. I walked in to find a familiar face standing over the arachne's carcass, mid-autopsy. That familiar face in question was Dr. Denise Sabatino. She's kind of a bitch, but she knows her stuff, I guess. I wasn't that surprised to see her there. What I was surprised to see was the other man in the room. Another familiar face, although last I checked, he worked in my department, not parasitology. He was tall and a little scrawny, although in a way that gave me the impression that he was actually secretly kind of buff. I don't know, I've never seen him without a shirt on. Dr. Sabatino looked up at me, mildly annoyed when I walked in, and didn't even bother to greet me. Which was fine, because I already know that she's an asshole, and she really didn't need to remind me. The other guy was at least nice enough to say hello. "Oh, Miss Valentine. Welcome. Sorry we got started without you. I wasn't sure when you'd make it in." He offered me a hand to shake, and I just stared at it. It was covered in bug guts. He seemed to realize that after a moment, and sheepishly took it back. "Mr. Marsh," I said. "Wasn't expecting to see you here." "Oh? I'm a bit of a latecomer, I'm afraid. Milo gave me the call to look into this, since I was in the area. He thought you could use some help." I scoffed before grabbing a pair of latex gloves. "Sure. Cool. Look, I don't like Robert Marsh. He's okay, I guess. We've probably only spoken like 4 or 5 times, and most of it was at a Christmas party. But the thing is, he's a vampire, and while I've got nothing against vampires, I also don't know how to fucking talk to them. Like I said before, like 7 out of 10 vampires aren't looking to start trouble. They're not inherently evil or anything like that. But still, what do you say when a good portion of your jobs involve hunting and killing other vampires?" "Shall we continue?" Dr. Sabatino asked, obviously impatient. "Please," Marsh said, before looking at me. "Dr. Sabatino was just examining the internal organs. We were about to discuss her findings." "Riveting," I murmured. Looking into the open chest cavity of the dead arachne, all I saw was a whole lot of spider guts. Well, it's hard to say conclusively, since a lot of this could have occurred post-mortem, while the body was in the water. But judging by the inflamed state of the small intestine, as well as some of the bursting in the large intestine and near the bottom of the lower abdomen, I would say there are signs consistent with the parasitic infection we've been treating in the locals." "So it's likely this was the carrier?" Marsh asked. "It's possible, but hard to say for sure. This body appears to be only 2 weeks old, which is roughly consistent with when the first signs of the infestation began to appear among the local population, and I can't draw any conclusions on source. It may have been a wanderer, or it may also have been part of a local community." "You didn't find any dead worms inside it?" I asked skeptically. "We found some traces, yes," Dr. Sabatino asked. "Although we also found dead worms in the sediment and within some of the local fish. It's likely they originated with this specimen, but I cannot say so conclusively." I rolled my eyes. "Well, what can you say conclusively? You said it might be local, right? Any hints on where we'd find more if it was?" The stomach contents were consistent with what you might see in an arachnne living relatively close to civilization. Most of them tend to farm their own food, but what they farm depends on where they live. I've known some more urbanly inclined communities to farm a breed of large centipede for their meat. I believe that was what we found in its stomach. This community would probably be someplace where food is abundant for those centipedes, although that could be a lot of places. Deeper in the woods, in a cave system, even in the sewers. Maybe all three if the community is large enough. Joy of joys, I said under my breath. We can take a look at the lake, see what we find, Marsh offered. Thanks for the help, Doctor. Happy to help, Detective, Dr. Sabatino said with a hokey smile. She shot me a death glare. Do me a favor and keep her out of trouble? Of course, Marsh said, before turning to leave. I stripped off my latex gloves and returned Dr. Sabatino's death glare, before following Marsh out. God, I hate her, I murmured. Denise? She's not so bad when you get to know her. Stern, yes. She genuinely cares about people, Marsh said. Stick around a few more years. She'll grow on you. Yeah, sure. Look, not to be rude, but why the hell are you actually here? Last time I checked, you already had a partner. Bella something? I don't know. Your girlfriend. It's Della. And we aren't currently together. That's great. So, back to my first question. Why are you here? Marsh paused before looking over at me. He seemed to think for a moment before he spoke. A precaution, he said. Director Duran asked me to keep an eye on you. Arachne can be difficult. It's better to work in a group with them. Milo sent you personally, huh? I asked. Least he could have done was tell me up front. To be fair, I just got the call within the last hour. He only reached out to me because I was the closest. Dell and I were on a different case a few towns over. Just a ghoul hunt. I figured she could handle it while I looked into this. Well, as answers went, it could have been a lot worse. I sighed and lathered my hands with sanitizer. Fine. Let's get this over with then. I imagine you already know where the lake is? I passed by on my way into town, just to get a look at it, he said. I can lead you there. We'll poke around and grab a bite. I looked over at him warily. At a diner. That wasn't a pun. I have food in the car, I said. I'm not eating or drinking a goddamn thing in this town until it's clean. And you shouldn't either. I offered him some hand sanitizer. He hesitated for a moment before taking it and lathering it into his hands. Come on, you lead the way, I said, before continuing down the hall. The local lake wasn't much to look at. It was obviously man-made and not very big. It was surrounded on most sides by trees, but as far as I could tell, the forest wasn't all that dense. I could see a fucking suburb through one patch of woods. Where exactly did they find the body? I asked. Marsh pointed towards a stretch of shoreline nearby. There was a large pipe with a trickle of water flowing out of it that I just assumed led to the sewers. Going to assume they didn't look in there? I asked. No, they didn't. Looks gated off, though, Marsh replied, as I trudged through the muck to the grate. The pipe was barely big enough for me to stand up straight in. When I pushed on the grate, it only moved a little bit. I looked up at the bars. The top ones didn't touch the edge of the pipe. Looking down, I saw that the bottom ones did, although only barely. With a grunt, I pulled the grate upwards and pushed it again. This time, it swung inwards like a door. The two bars that actually touched the top and bottom worked like a hinge to keep it anchored, and its weight kept it locked in place. Not half bad, I supposed. Looks can be deceiving, I said, before reaching into my pocket for my phone and shining a light down into the darkness. I started to go inside, only to feel Marsh's hand on my shoulder, stopping me. I'll go first, he said, before pulling his suit jacket aside to reveal a gun in a holster. Alright, be my guest, I said, stepping back and inviting him in. He reluctantly stepped down into the water and grimaced as he did. Oh, suck it up, I said. Stormwater runoff, not sewage. This is literally just rainwater. Well, that's reassuring, Marsh murmured before continuing forward. I followed behind him. For a few minutes, we walked in silence through the water. Then he just had to make small talk. So you're fairly new with the organization, are you? He asked. Not that new. I'm doing this for almost 2 years. I've been doing this since the 1980s. Good for you. Look, if you want to have a dick measuring contest right now, I'm gonna have to give you a rain check. I'm sorry, that's not what I was implying, Marsh said sheepishly. What I meant was, it's nice to see a new face stick around for a change. I've seen a lot of people come and go who didn't even make it 6 months, let alone a year. Either because it was too much or because it got the better of them. This isn't exactly an easy life we lead. Yeah, well, pays the bills, I said, before deciding that if he wanted to talk, I might as well talk back. So, personal question. Is it weird for you hunting other vampires and shit? Marsh laughed. Not as weird as you might think. It's not much different than a police officer arresting other humans. Some people are too dangerous to be left to their own devices. The same applies to vampires. I don't see it as hunting my own kind. I see it as protecting everyone. That's awful noble of you. Gets me by. What about you? Why do you do it? Now it was my turn to pause and not have an answer. After a few moments, I just shrugged. It gets me by. It's not like I've got anything better to do, I finally said. Marsh looked back at me, his brow furrowing a bit. So you put your life at risk doing this? He asked. Yeah, so? You don't have anyone you care about? Anyone waiting for you to come home? I scoffed. Let's not get all sentimental here. Nobody gives a shit if I live or die. So why should I give a shit if I live or die? We all bite it someday. Might as well take a few assholes with me. Come on, you're slowing down. Marsh didn't exactly look satisfied by that answer, but kept going. I think he took the cue to just drop it and move on. I decided to change the subject and avoid the inevitable awkward silence. So, what's it like being a vampire? I asked. Less interesting than you'd think, he said. Once you get past the initial sensory overload that comes with it, you're still the same as you've always been. Only now you need to drink blood, and don't age. Sensory overload? Yeah. The colors seem brighter, the sounds are louder, smells are stronger. Everything feels more intense, he said. It takes some getting used to. But really, it's not that much to write home about. Holy shit, that sounds boring, I replied. You don't get any cool powers or anything? No bat powers or echolocation or shit like that? Most vampires don't, no. There's a ritual to grant some unique abilities, though. Enhanced strength and speed, complete invulnerability, hemokinesis. Not a lot of vampires have the strength to pull it off. The process is demanding. You've tried it? I asked. Once. I didn't succeed. I wouldn't try it again unless I absolutely had to. The power isn't worth it, if you ask me. I'm fine the way I am. As he spoke, he trailed off a little, as we entered into a new section of pipe. This one larger than before. We were at least able to stand upright now, although the water seemed deeper than before. It was almost going up to my knee. Great. More disgusting, worm-filled water. Just what I fucking needed, I said under my breath. Marsh looked around thoughtfully before watching to see which way the water flowed. "What do you think?" he asked. "Upstream or downstream?" "I don't know. I'm just pulling this out of my ass, but if they're farming shit, maybe downstream?" I suggested. Just a guess, but anything caught in the current would eventually end up there. Might be better for whatever they're raising. "Perhaps," Marsh said before heading downstream. "Only one way to know for sure." I took out my phone and checked my map, just to try and get a read on where the hell we were, and just where we might be headed. "There's no water sources out this way," I said. "Not for a while, at least. Where the hell is this shit even running to?" Marsh shone his light along the walls. A few large pipes running off elsewhere branched out, but not many. "I don't know. Does this water feel deep to you?" he asked. "When's the last time it really rained?" "About 2 weeks ago." I crunched the numbers in my head. Why was the water this deep? There was no way that this was from the rainfall 2 weeks ago. "So why is there this much water if it hasn't rained?" Marsh asked. "Where's it coming from?" Truth be told, I wasn't sure I'd like the answer to that question. As we walked, I could hear the faint roar of a waterfall up ahead. Marsh paused and shone his light on the walls, his eyes narrowing as he did. "We're not in the storm drains anymore," he noted. I turned on my phone's flashlight and checked. The bastard was right. The concrete walls of the storm drain were gone. Now, the walls around us were ragged, and looked like they'd been dug out crudely. Worse still, I could see fine strands of spider webs keeping everything in place. "Fuck me," I said under my breath. I saw Marsh reach for his gun as we moved a little further down. Ahead, I could see the path we were on ending. The water dropped into an abyss down below that had been meticulously carved into the earth. Looking down, I realized that what we were looking at was a cistern, and I could see things moving around inside it. Large, pale, pill-shaped creatures with spindly legs. They looked almost like house centipedes, except they were closer to the size of a large dog. "Well, that would be their cattle," Marsh said softly. "Looks like they're grazing for things caught in the cistern. It's almost as if they've modified the storm drains into an aqueduct of sorts." "Then why the fuck put goddamn worms in it?" I asked. "Wouldn't that get into their supply too?" Marsh was silent for a moment, before spinning around suddenly. He must have heard something that I didn't. I saw him raise his gun, but I didn't see what he was aiming at. Not until it was way too late. The shape was on the roof of the cavern. I could see the 8 long legs and the shining eyes in the darkness. I could hear a low, animalistic hiss. Marsh fired twice, but the arachnne was already coming. It skittered along the ceiling, keeping low before it pounced. It hit Marsh head on, crushing him under its weight, and pinning him under the water. I pulled a collapsing baton from my jacket, and took a violent swing at the arachne's skull. I heard the metal crack against its head, and watched it recoil. As it backed off, I took another swing, and I'm pretty sure that one dislocated its jaw. Marsh pulled himself out of the water and scrambled to his feet. I saw him raise his gun to fire another shot that struck the carapace of the arachne's abdomen. It snarled before rushing us again. I raised my baton to get another strike in, and hit it one last time before it caught me with a backhand and launched me off my feet. I landed in the water and rolled over the edge. I could see the muzzle flash from Marsh's gun. But then, there was only silence as I hit the water below. I tried to keep my mouth shut. I really fucking did. I'm sure I swallowed some of that goddamn parasite-infested water. So much for hand sanitizer. As I broke the surface and dragged myself towards the makeshift shore, I saw some of the pale centipede creatures recoil from me, their weird bug mouths twitching in interest. I only gave them a cursory glance before looking up to the top of the waterfall, where Marsh had been. I didn't see any sign of him. Didn't hear any gunshots. Didn't see any sign of a body either. As far as I could tell, both he and the arachnne were gone. Fuck. Marsh? I called. Marsh! No answer. Just the sound of rushing water. I could hear skittering movement in the water behind me as one of the centipede things drew closer. I just caved in its fucking head with my baton, screaming with rage as I reduced most of the front portion of the centipede to a pulpy mess of bug meat. One of its buddies was too dumb to understand that this translated to, "Leave me the fuck alone," in the universal language, so I beat that one to death too. The others took the hint, and kept their distance from me. I spit on the corpse of one of the dead bugs before storming out of the water. As soon as I was gone, their buddies started eating them. Gross. I made it to a small rocky shore nearby and started looking for a way back up that didn't involve being a spider and crawling up the walls. At a glance, I couldn't see one, although I did see a small cavern, and for lack of any better options, I took that, hoping that maybe I'd get lucky and I would wind back up there. I did not. I tried using my phone's flashlight, but the water had fucked it up. No more phone. I swore under my breath before jamming it back into my pocket, and wished I'd decided to bring a gun instead of a fucking baton. Christ. The only reason I bought the thing was because it was easy to sneak into a bar or nightclub. It was great for dealing with my usual targets. Not so great for this sort of thing. Swearing under my breath the whole time, I kept a hand on the wall as I fumbled my way through the cavern and tried to gather up my thoughts. Currently, my situation was fucked. Current objective? Unfuck the situation. Simple enough, right? I figured I should probably start by finding Marsh, or what was left of Marsh. That was step one in what would likely be a long and confusing number of often contradictory steps that at one point, in an early design phase long since forgotten, might have been a coherent process. Step two? I'd figure that out once I got there. But I'd already decided that for step three, I'd climb into a bathtub full of hand sanitizer and drink vodka until I passed out / died / was sure I wasn't infested with parasitic worms. Hey, I've had worse plans. As I fumbled around in the dark like a moron, I had to pause every little while to listen to see if I was alone or not. I heard a few distant sounds. The faraway scrape of arachnid legs on rocks, and a few chittering, hissing voices. None of them close enough to really worry about, but I kept my ears open anyway. After what felt like half an hour or so, I felt the cavern starting to open up, and noticed small torches mounted on the walls, offering up a little bit of light. I guess that meant I was getting close to wherever the hell it was they lived. I wasn't back to the top of the cistern, but it had to be something. As I kept going, the torches became more numerous, and I started seeing ramshackle buildings cobbled together from bits of debris, various forest branches, and spider silk. Each one had an almost domed appearance to it, with a large doorway, and I could see makeshift lanterns lighting the inside. I kept extra quiet around those buildings. No telling what, if anything, was inside. A little further, and I finally hit the jackpot. The caverns opened up into a large chamber with a goddamn spider shantytown in it. I could see dozens of domed buildings constructed out of whatever was handy. A large bonfire burned in the center of the shantytown, and around it, I could see several massive figures, each one with the body of a spider and a humanoid torso. Arachnne. Great. I could see a few of them seemingly discussing something. I wasn't sure what, since I don't speak whatever the hell language nightmare spider people speak. Either way, they didn't notice me coming in from the cavern I was in. I ducked behind one of the houses and watched them for a few moments, studying them as I planned what to do next. From one of the larger buildings, I saw two of the arachne dragging the corpse of a third one towards the bonfire. I watched as they threw it on unceremoniously, before turning around and going back. The fuck? Were they cooking it? Or just burning it because it was dead? I watched for a few moments as a few others seemed to gather around, keeping their distance from the fire. And as I watched, I saw another figure standing in the doorway of the building the arachne had taken their dead buddy out of. Marsh. For the most part, he looked unharmed. He stood there, just watching as the dead arachne burned, before one of the living ones appeared behind him and coaxed him back inside. Several of the arachne by the bonfire took off, leaving only a few left. None of them were facing the house Marsh and his captor had gone into. I seized the opportunity while it was there. Ducking between the houses, I made my way to the one Marsh was in. I could hear arachne moving around in some of the buildings, but none of them seemed to hear me. So far, so good. When I finally reached the house Marsh was in, I stepped inside, baton at the ready. This house was a little bigger than the others, and I paused as I saw several silk hammocks affixed to the walls. I could see the sleeping shapes of several arachne inside. Great. This had to be a barracks or something. Christ. They probably brought Marsh here to eat him. I kept my eyes peeled, keeping to the shadows as I looked for a sign of him. It didn't take me that long to find him. He was standing by one of the hammocks, next to one of the sleeping arachne. He didn't see me at first, not until I walked right up and put a hand on his shoulder. He spun around, eyes widening as he did. Nina, there you are. No shit, Sherlock. Let's get the fuck out of here. Wait, hold on. Absolutely fucking not. Move your vampire ass before I move it for you. No, Nina, wait. You have to... I heard a low, hissing voice behind me, and I spun around to see one of the arachne, the same one who'd ushered Marsh into the house, standing behind me. Its shoulders were tensed, its claws were extended. Yeah, this motherfucker was not happy to see me. Come on, asshole. Let's fucking go. I held the baton at the ready, daring it to come and get me. The arachne lunged, and I ducked under its swipe. I caught it across the ribs and heard it hiss in pain. I swung for its head next. Only, before I could reach it, I felt Marsh grabbing at me. Nina, wait! He cried before I pushed him off. The fuck's wrong with you? I snapped. Look! He gestured to the arachne in front of him, and I glanced at it, narrowing my eyes. It took me a few moments to see what he saw. The spider in the hammock wasn't asleep. He was wide awake. And while I'm no expert on spider facial expressions, I know pain when I see it. This thing was sick. I paused before looking back at Marsh, quietly demanding an explanation. It's an infirmary, he said. The parasite. It's in their water, too. I glanced back at the arachne I'd been ready to beat the shit out of. It had backed away from me and was watching me intently, evidently waiting to see if Marsh could de-escalate the situation before doing anything. So, what? You're saying the spiders are sick? I asked. As far as I can tell, it's hitting them just as hard as it's hitting the people topside. Maybe even a little worse. They've got a lot of dead and don't know what to do about it. Hence why they've just asked for help. I looked at the arachne again, then back to Marsh. Help. Let me get this straight. They grabbed you, dragged you here, to ask for help? Well, Jesus fucking Christ. They need to work on their fucking people skills. Marsh couldn't really argue with that. I swore under my breath and put the baton away. The arachne behind me seemed to relax a little. I assume he figured that meant I wasn't going to hit him again and that we were cool. So what now? I asked. The treatment we've got topside. Do we even know if it'll work on them? It might. Worth trying, at least. I've been trying to explain to this one here that we can send help down. It's been a bit of a process, but I was getting through. Look, I just crawled out of an infected pit full of giant centipedes, so forgive me if I'm still a little behind on things right now. Right. Sorry. I shook my head and stepped aside to let Marsh do his thing. We left the horrible spider village of nightmares about an hour later, and honestly, I was just grateful I didn't have to fight all of them on the way out. I half expected Dr. Sabatino to give us some shit for coming back and telling her the arachnne hadn't caused the infection, and were just as bad off as everyone else. But to my utter shock, she was cool with it. I watched her sending some folks down to deliver some medication, and as far as I know, none of them died. Marsh and I got treated for exposure to the water, which sucked, but hey, neither of us died, so there's that. And later that evening, before we both left town, Marsh and I grabbed a burger. Not in this town, in the next town over, where it was safe. You know, I honestly was expecting the arachnne to be a lot more hostile, he said as we finished our food. Usually, in my experience, they're a lot less trusting. I wouldn't let it go to your head, I said. They had no other options. They just did what they had to do. Perhaps. But necessity can open up some good doorways, if you let it, Marsh said. I looked up at him. What's that supposed to mean? Misery acquaints a man with strange bedfellows, he said. I rolled my eyes. Sure. Whatever you say, man. We'll just try to survive as best we can. Do you ever wonder who you'd trust in a situation like that? He asked. When you didn't have any other choice? I trust me, I said. Because at the end of the day, I'm all I've got. You don't seriously believe that, do you? Marsh asked. Back in the storm drain, you said that you don't think anyone would care if you lived or died. Why is that? I paused. Part of me wanted to tell him to fuck off right then and there. But, I don't know. I guess the rest of me just felt like giving him an answer. Who was he gonna tell? Because they won't, I said. Trust me. I spent enough time trying to get my shit in order to know that's never gonna work out. I already know it's not a them issue. It's a fucking me issue. You wanna know why nobody gives a shit? It's because I'm a piece of shit. And hey, I've long since made my peace with that. Marsh's expression softened a little. I see. Well, for what it's worth, Nina, I really can't say I agree with that. Even if I wasn't in much danger, you still went looking for me today. I met a lot of people in this business who wouldn't have even bothered to do that. I don't know what kind of a life you've lived, or what you've done. I think you've got the wrong idea about yourself. You think so, huh? I asked, unconvinced. I stood up, took out my wallet, and left some cash on the table. Well, stick around a little while longer. I'm bound to disappoint you. Thanks for dinner, Marsh. See you around. With that, I left him, got into my Jeep, and started the long drive back home. Hey everybody. Following today's video, I'll be doing a fireside chat with the author. I hope you'll join me on my brand new channel, the Grupe Project, where I'll be doing post-story author interviews every Friday. Check out the description below for more details, or type @ the Grupe Project, that's GRUPE, Grupe, in your search bar. Become a channel member today for early access, bonus videos, and special emojis only available to members. Check out the description below or click the join button for more info. If you'd like another way to help support the channel, please consider joining my Patreon page at patreon.com/JordanGroupeHorror. As a patron, you'll get access to bonus videos and content. You'll be credited at the end of every video going forward, and if you decide to stay for 3 months, I'll name a character after you which will be featured in a Hollow's End story. Links to join the Patreon are in the description. Thanks everyone for listening. Please like, subscribe, and comment to help the channel continue to grow. and see you again next time at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Hope you have a great night.